Welcome back. LearnUP Solutions and the New York Public Library's Pelham Bay branch are hosting a two-part parent learning series with a focus on early learning development. The series introduces Simplify IEP, a free AI tool aimed at helping parents understand the IEP process. Founder and CEO of LearnUP Solutions, Brittany Hamlett, joins me to discuss this effort. Brittany, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Now, as founder and CEO, can you tell me a little bit more about the creation of LearnUP Solutions?
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, I am a human. After that, I'm a mom. So, my son is autistic. He's 11 years old, and getting him services was beyond just this emotional roller coaster. And it started when he was, very little, and getting him early intervention services where he aged out of those services and we weren't able to get him the next step of services. And so when he went into pre-K, he struggled. Because he's autistic and he didn't have what he needed in the classroom. So when he went into public school, into his community school, it was even less of that support. So getting him the IEP, getting him into the program he's in now, he's in the ASD Nest program through the DOE, and he's doing so well. I really wanted to make sure that I could not only share my journey as a parent, but also shorten the process for parents who don't know where to go, don't know who to ask. They have to wait months and months to, ask a doctor, to get an evaluation for their child, to get a diagnosis. When they go into the schools, they're like, okay, which teacher do I ask? What do I ask? They don't know what to do. So I created this to shorten that process and to give them, an avenue, a gateway to that.
Now, I definitely want to highlight that it's amazing that something like this is happening in the Bronx because, as we know, the Bronx is a borough that struggles a lot financially. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the challenges that can be or that can arise when you're dealing with something like this and you're from a low-income neighborhood?
Absolutely. So I found, because not just being a mom, right? I was an educator. So for more than 10 years working with all different kinds of people and working in the Bronx, understanding the community that I served. And I was in Pelham Bay mostly. And, you think, okay, Pelham Bay, Country Club, some of these neighborhoods are more affluent, right? But there's a lot less services when it comes to supporting immigrants and them understanding what's available to them. And there's a lot less money being provided in those communities for this kind of work. So I found that when I was talking to a mom who had 3 kids and she's like, what do I do? And she doesn't understand English and she's just like worried about putting food on the table. Like, what do I do? I found that a lot of those parents didn't understand what special education meant, what their rights are as parents, and what their students, their children's rights are as students. And if you look at the evaluations that have been done in the past few years, only about less than 20% of those evaluations done in the DOE, and I'm talking about evaluations for children to get an IEP, an individualized education plan, less than 20% actually are finalized. There's a disconnect there. The parents, if they're saying, okay, I'm signing off for you to, see if my child needs additional services, and then toward the end they go, wait, I didn't know that's what you meant by that. There's a lot of taboo, there's a lack of understanding, and there's a disconnect between the parents' understanding, but also the schools not fully teaching the parents what that means. So we are bridging that gap, and I find that that's a big issue right now.
Now, I definitely want to highlight and talk about the collaboration with the NYPL, which I think is amazing. That
Thank you.
Such a huge organization in New York City is supporting this. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So it's important for me, like literacy is everything. Like everything has a language, right? Math has its own language. Science has its own language. And so language development, and we're talking about early learning and language development, is really, really tied to emotional development and emotional health. So when parents understand, and this is why we're collaborating with the New York Public Library to provide this free learning experience for parents to go to and utilize a resource that's already in their neighborhood, steps away from where they live. You don't have to go all the way out to Manhattan if you're not in Manhattan. go down the block from where you live and learn with other parents, speak to other people, learn from us what you can do to help to build your child's literacy skills, but also how you can develop those emotional skills, right? With my son loves Harry Potter.
Okay,
Right?
me too.
Right. Big Harry. I'm a Ravenclaw, whatever you want. Right? So he really loves the movies, right? And one thing that I started doing is, okay, now let's read the books. And it's and usually in the classroom it's the opposite. You read the book and then you watch the movie, or they put the movie on. I don't know how it was when you were in school, but I teach parents, like, do the opposite, right? Literacy is everywhere, and in my son, watching the movies first and then reading the books and making those connections, and I would ask him those higher level thinking, how is Harry in this part? How did this situation change his character, right? And it helped him to take those strategies that we were doing together and with a fun topic in order to transfer them to other things. So we're teaching parents those kind of strategies. This is what you can do every day. And it only takes you a minute or two. You don't have to be an expert in this. You're an expert parent and you're an expert in knowing your child. So here's what you can do where it's not putting more stress on you.
Now,
So, yeah.
I definitely want to highlight one already passed, September 7th,
Yes.
but, parents could still make it to the October 19th event. Can you
Yes.
tell me a little bit more about, what's going to happen on October 19th?
Yes, so on October 19th, we're focusing on understanding the IEP process, right, and getting your child specialized services. But we're focusing on from birth to 8th grade. And you're probably thinking, well, why such a wide range, right? But like I told you before, it starts from when they're babies. You need to understand what to look for in order to ask the right kinds of questions to get early intervention services. You need to know, okay, now that my child is aging out at 3, how can I get them CPSC, going into getting the IEP when they're going into pre-K? From pre-K, what does that look like going into kindergarten? From kindergarten to 5th grade, right? K to 5, and then up to 8th grade, right? What does that look like? And what are the implications for that?
Now, I want to talk about simplifyiep.ai.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how that works? And also, like, what is it just in general?
Sure. So it is a chatbot. Essentially, it's a chatbot where we're meeting parents at their needs where they are, right? There's I can't tell you all the different levels of questions I've gotten from parents, especially because I've gone through this journey myself, right? So the onboarding process for this chatbot, it asks you where you are. So if you're a parent, you're like, I have some questions, like people have said things to me about my child, I don't know where to start. That's one user. And then another user could be like me, where it's like, I know my child has this classification, but I want to know more of what I can do. Or, we've had parents, I had a mom asked me, like, hey, like, my daughter's 1 year old and she's a year old and she's talking so much. What can I do to improve her vocabulary? So it's not just about the children who are quote unquote like have deficits, but if you want to help enrich your child. So you can ask whatever questions you have, we give based on your onboarding, right? Who you are as a user, suggested prompts, it gives you personalized answers, and then from there you can develop an action plan. So it'll give you step by step exactly what to do next.
That's amazing. And I love that you mentioned that it could really help all parents. And
Yes.
it's not just for parents who may have children with learning disabilities, but, parents who feel like you mentioned, my child is talking, how can you further utilize that? Because I think, unfortunately, in a lot of our communities, we have a lot of bright children, gifted children, but may not have the resources to fully utilize that. So I think that's really amazing. Now, what specific strategies does LearnUP Solutions employ to ensure that every student can reach their full potential?
That's a really great question. So what we're doing is focusing on the individualized part of it and closing that gap, right? A lot of times when we're thinking about education, we're only thinking about what's happening in the classroom. So in order for us to get to that part in the classroom, we have to have a top-down approach and a bottom-up approach. So the top-down is working with schools and teachers, school administrators to know how to have these conversations with parents. Because like I said, parents at the last minute, they're dropping out of, okay, you know what, I don't want to give my kid those services. So educators need to know how to tell the parents and educate them on and have these conversations on this is what your child needs and this is why it's important. So that's how we're working with the schools. And the bottom-up approach is giving the parents what they need in order to have these conversations, to give them the confidence, the understanding in their own language. Simplify IEP is available in more than 9 languages, right? So this is how we're helping the kids in the school. We're closing the gaps in the educational ecosystem.
That's amazing. And there are many gaps, as I've learned today, that, just in so many different areas. So I'm glad there's something, another piece to kind of help, with that situation. Now, in what ways does LearnUP Solutions collaborate with educators in schools to address the diverse needs of students?
Absolutely. So like I said before, right, where I was just like, so many times I was sitting with parents where I was just like, this is what your child needs, right? And I was wearing my educator hat. And a lot of times they were just like, I don't understand. There's so many taboos when you're talking to different people with different cultures and different backgrounds. Special education, that's not a fun term in some communities. So definitely I had to put on the parent hat and say, listen, I've been in your shoes. So what we're doing is we're working with educators to do those workshops where we're teaching them this is how you have these empathetic conversations with parents, because it can be frustrating where you're saying, I know your child needs this and I'm trying to teach you, I'm trying to show you, but the parent is also just like, there's a block, there's a wall, there's a fear. So that's how we're working with educators in order to do that.
And I also want to add that sometimes parents have other children, that may have needs as well.
Absolutely.
And it can be pretty overwhelming. So I think it's important that we have that support for parents. And with that, I want to say thank you so much, for joining us and sharing a little bit more about your background as a parent and how it's influenced the work that you're doing to help other parents in our community. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
If you want to learn more about their services, please go to their website at learnupsolutions.com. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you miss any parts of today's show, you can catch the recable cast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios Channel 33, or watch anytime on the web at BronxNet.org. You can catch our brand new episode of Open with Darren Jaime on Wednesday and with Rena Valentine on Friday. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.